Hello, this morning we're going to do some more of our English practices. Today, before we begin with our main topic, let's say something about our weather. We can see that there are birds flying around the vicinity that we have here, also chirping because hear the sound of the birds chirping. It looks like they're having fun. They're chasing one another, making all these continuous sounds. The sky is still covered with clouds. It's kind of cloudy. You can't see well the blue sky. What we have are the clouds, gray, big clouds covering the sky. It might be raining later on, but we'll see. The birds, I'm gonna say the birds. By the way, usually give us the wrong prediction. I think based on what I've seen here. Whenever we see the birds, it looks like they're also looking at the sky. That's why. So if you see that the sky is cloudy and it seems like it's gonna rain, it's likely the birds also think in that way too. But it's not gonna rain um, super quickly though, because we can see that it's still not as gray as it should. Like when we see that the clouds are already super gray, I keep on saying super, but if the sky is all covered with clouds and the clouds are really gray and it look like it's gonna rain any minute, I think that's when we find the birds not doing this chasing one another kind of game. So what I'm saying is the birds in this case, they also, I think, look at the sky. So that's how they know if it's gonna rain or not, and if they gotta stop playing or not. But sometimes too, I think that the birds, at least based on literature, because I remember this part with the Noah's Ark. This is actually, I think, if I remember correctly, in the book of Genesis. The book of Genesis is actually quite interesting because usually when we think about the book of Genesis, what we always remember would be Adam and Eve, and they're in this Garden of Eden, and somehow things don't work as well, and they have to leave the Garden of Eden. But actually, if you read the book of Genesis, it's there's more to it. Afterwards, find Noah and creating this ark and this idea about the birds because I don't know if I read it there or I saw it on a cartoon. I think it's also in the scripture, the book. But they knew that there was land because the birds were there. Because if there's no land at all and they're all stuck in an ocean somewhere, it's unlikely that they'll encounter birds, especially birds that are not as big. Because if you just swim in the ocean from one place to another, you think you can travel the whole course without getting tired at all. And where are you gonna rest, right? So in this case, the birds, I think, you see that they're not too big, and they're just this little birds, and they seem to be around now, and visiting your ship. Looks like there would be land nearby. So I think that's one of the things that we can learn from the book. But in this case, oh, I think the birds are now chirping in a different sequence and in a different pace. Looks like they've stopped playing around and they're saying something about the. Well, I've heard of that before too, and I think what I thought was there will be a incoming rain, but I think it will take a little bit more time for the rain to come. It's not like towards the noontime we'll have the rain, or towards the afternoon we'll have the rain. I remember having heard of this type of too, but the rain will be coming, but not immediately. So we'll see. We'll see if this holds true or not. The other thing that I like to say is about the butterflies. Whenever I see butterflies in the morning, flying around and um, flying inside the house compound actually, and going near the garden, the leaves from the coconut looking tree that we have here, it usually means that it's not gonna rain. So right now I don't see any butterflies, and we do have the chirping birds. I'm gonna say, and it's really quite a guess based on previous things that I've observed. It's not gonna rain today, but it's likely gonna rain maybe tomorrow or the following day, and you gotta prepare. Okay, so that's my prediction, and we'll see if it holds true or not. Okay, all right. So that's something about the weather. A while ago too, I was at the public stadium. I didn't get to go to the public stadium last Friday because it was closed. Someone was using it. On Saturday, I opted to do something else, like go to the public market and buy some of the fruits, like the bananas. Maybe I could upload some of the photos of the banana that I took because it really reminded me of Crisis, the Crisis game, which is actually a 2007-year-old game, I think. I think it was first launched for the PC in the year 2007. And then years afterwards, over 10 years afterwards, we got the Nintendo Switch remake version. And I was playing around with it when we had this internet blackout. Kind of like we couldn't really access the internet. We couldn't use the telephone, one of the telephone lines that we had here. And I called up the PLDT, the guys working on the telephone, the communications company, telecommunications company, and they were telling me too that it was not only in this place that was having problems. And I learned that they have this kind of like a PLDT, I think it's a PLDT network box, where all the households who are in the same area and are using the line would be connected and would have their own network box. And I was saying something about there are guys playing around with messing around with those boxes. That's why I think we also have problems with wiretapping, and in the same way that people can listen to a conversation on the telephone between two guys calling from this place to another, and then there's this other guy who could listen to their conversation. We've had this problem before. Year 2004, we had big news about this, and years afterwards, seems like it's still there. But this time, it's not just telephone conversation, but also snooping around the wires from the internet websites that people visit from this household, and it's really annoying. And I think if they're not messing around with the PLDT office themselves, like the servers there where we all go to, because if you do the IP network tracing, you'd find that if you want to go to, for example, Google, it will go to a certain path where it would lead you to their office in Taguig City before it goes off to the next sort of like the main branch, before it could give you the information you want from Google. So from there we know that there is this PLDT office or data center, or where they do the traffic, the internet traffic, where people who wanted to access Google, for example, would go there. And I was saying that it could be that these guys, the smugglers, terrorists who have been viewing the network traffic, they could be messing around with those too. But seems like also within the neighborhood, we also have something like a network box, and people, if they could mess around with that, then they could listen to the conversations, and so they didn't need to go to Taguig City. They could just be in the neighborhood and find where the network box is and connect some kind of wires there. And So this is related to wires, but there's also something about wireless. And if people have been promulgating wireless connectivity, especially using mobile telephones, then that's where the wire shark would be quite handy, because I think the wire shark really makes it much easier if we're talking about wireless. But if we're talking about wired, someone really has to plug in a maybe an octopus connector. Similar with the electricity. We know that we've had this news incidents before where in this small neighborhood there were people who um, connect their own electrical lines to get electricity, and they're all sort of sharing in an octopus connection, and it has been known to be quite dangerous, especially if you have so many people connecting and they're using so much power that the connection couldn't hold the entire passage of those electricity, and becomes a big problem, causing fires and that stuff that we often read about and often hear about from the news. Okay, so for several days since Sunday evening, we've had problems with the internet connection. I've called up the PLDT guys. They said they're fixing it, and it takes us several days. I think it was only on Friday, if I'm not mistaken, Friday morning, that the internet came back, and from there we could now access again the internet. But the noise pollution, people accessing the traffic, network traffic. I think it's also definitely big money, because if you can access what people are looking at, particularly pertaining to bank accounts, particularly pertaining to how much money they have, what they're buying, because if you are using any of the online banking services out there, then it's likely that it's gonna tell you how much money you have, right? Because you want to know definitely if you're gonna buy something, is there money inside this account or not, right? And if you buy something, would it be enough to at least buy whatever you want to buy? If you have like something that it's quite expensive, I guess, would you be able to buy it online or not? Would you have the money, and how much money you have left? So definitely it's going to tell you how much money you have, right? And so that information is important for people who want to steal, who want to find some way to get hold of your money. Okay. The other thing is, we do know that there is this place in Batangas where internet traffic also goes. I think when I was last there, I think it was about 5 years or so ago, the noise pollution does reach there as well. And I think there are people also who know about it, who are aware, but they seem to also be unable to solve the problem, and it looks like they would tend to just follow the whatever the smuggler terrorists are saying. So because if you, for example, like here, file a report, we file reports, but the noise pollution still persists. It's like nothing. It's the results show that they still continue the noise. It's like you file reports and there's nothing there. And if you file reports and the smug terrorists know that you filed the reports, they're gonna attack you. They're gonna find some way to give you more problems. And I think there are people also in places like the Batangas area that know that too. So they end up being inclined to obey these smuggler terrorists, and in exchange they get something in return, maybe much more than the authorities, the government could give them, right? I think this thing about the noise pollution, I definitely continue to identify my cousin Sison, the Ryan Sison, who is a member of this group. Because when I was in Batangas, we could still hear him. We could still hear him making noise. He seems to be following us around. And I think also this can be quite dangerous if you're traveling, um, like one of those buses, ride one of those buses, and they send you this head pain or dizziness, one of those boodle boodle attacks, and the driver can't handle it too much because maybe he's tired, maybe he just woke up after or he's been working for several days, and he has to wake up really early to drive you guys to this place in Batangas and then come back and work again and all that. Eventually, you find that we've had bus accidents. People who were sleepy or had this dizzy kind of sensation going. So these guys, the smuggler terrorists, are causing really a lot of the problems that people who are already working uh, don't need. It's like unsolicited distraction, unsolicited noise. So more problems for people. And the other thing is, we do have news about. I think this is quite an old news, but I think it still exists. Like one of the towers in the provinces, there will be cases when they be blown up, and I think it's also because people knew that the illness that maybe their family members having is just made up illness by the smuggler terrorists, like the boodle boodle, dizzy, headache, head pain, right? So they thought that okay, so if it's coming from the cell phone, then we destroy the tower, because if you file reports, seems like there's no one's doing anything. It's like the guys who are supposed to do something are controlled by the smuggler terrorists, because smuggler terrorists definitely have money, and if they have money from the smuggling, it's so much more, millions, right? So they can just control some of these guys. Oh, it seems like you're in charge of this, and we're gonna make a problem for you so that you'll be in need of money. Maybe his wife gets sick or something. His daughter gets sick or something, and they'll be in need of money. And here comes along one of the members of the smugglers terrorists who has the money and will help you with your problem. Maybe it won't really necessarily be in the form of cash, not necessarily be in form of cash, but maybe the illness would be cured quite cheaply or something, right? No need for massive amounts of money being shelled out to cure the illness, because it's really just made up illness. But it's also, we need to clarify this because sometimes it's really quite difficult. I think there are people who also want to be careful about saying that it's from the smuggler terrorists, because sometimes it's really an illness and it's not just made up. So you need to identify which is which, and I think people, because they don't want to make mistake, or they don't really care too much, we don't really know you, or we don't see any big problem too much with you, so we'll just keep it as is and go on. But really, I think if you investigate, there is this noise pollution continuously making distractions. So in terms of the provinces, people would wanna blow up the tower because they seem to have of a less of the power of being able to live the kind of life that they are supposed to have, just because there are some guys, maybe the yuppies are in control, and they're causing problems, creating problems for people, and because of that, the people are in need of money, even though they're already working. Even though they've already done what they can, and it seems like the last resort would be, if no one seems to be listening, we blow up the tower, and that would at least stop the wireless there, at least for a while, right? So it seems like that's the action for certain people. So I think really in terms of governance administration, it's usually about keeping things in not keeping things in order and not in some sort of chaos where people are in a panic. People are um, doing more violent actions, more trouble for other people. Um, and I think some of the problems, because we read it in the textbooks, I think maybe our current president, Marcos, may have also read something about it. Maybe have known about it from his own father, but I remember because in Japan, we got hold of textbooks where they explain certain events, why Japan had been able to become a much stronger country after the war when everyone else seemed to be also poor. And it's like they just lost the war. How come after 10, 20, 30 years they've gone much stronger and people are admiring them, right? So that book, the Pacific Rivalry book, there's something about that. Something about the former President Marcos, who came and visited the Prime Minister of Singapore, former Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew, and I think if you're pro Marcos, you wouldn't really like what was written there because it seems like the Prime Minister, when the former president was talking to him, was kind of like I don't know what you are saying, right? Because it seems like former President Marcos was saying that he was grateful for the stuff that I guess he learned from the Prime Minister, right? And we know that at the time the Prime Minister of Singapore was very strict also with the way he run the nation, Singapore, and there were a lot of people also who would say that I think would say that the dictatorship, having a strong hand over how things work, is the way to go. If you don't do that, you let people just um, have this freedom, liberation kind of way of doing things. You won't get too much in terms of progress. What you'll have is a lot of people poor, a lot of people in need of money, and people making wrong decisions, and it's all about people having the most money, and the guy who has the most money controls the whole thing. And because he controls the whole thing, um, he uh, he can do whatever he wants, even though it's not really for everyone, for the whole, right? And so there were people who would think about maybe that's really the way to go. We need to have a strong hand in government, and but the problem is if you get the people to vote, it seems like they really don't know what they're talking about, right? Because they have all these ideas, want to do this, want to do that, blah, 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 blah. But again, it's so slow, and you can't really do much, right? Maybe, for example, in the U.S., it's only 4 years. How many projects can you do in 4 years? Of course, they have a re-election after the 4 years if you get re-elected, but really at that span of time, can you really do as much, or is it more of like you're just there and you create a project, but when you're done, it's gonna be scrapped, another new project, and maybe some of those projects will continue on, but you don't really know because you won't be there anymore. It's like that kind of experience, and so it seems like continuing on having a stronghold of the country was the way to go. But I think really um, it would be okay. It would be okay if there would be less of the chaos. So, for example, in Singapore's case, they could do what they wanted. They got a prime minister continuing on for years and years, but because they have such a stronghold and it seems effective, and there weren't really people who um, could make a lot of the noise and create a lot of the problems that people could quickly see that it's not working, that people are creating more problems, creating more chaos. Then it seems like there's another uh, it's um, you gotta you gotta make sure that it doesn't go that way, right? So if you are able to um, get the country in a high security level, and even though you have a stronghold of the whole thing, even for years and years, people won't really care too much. America won't really care too much. You see what happens with the case of Singapore. Singapore saying we don't want our kids to be like Americans. All this freedom, all this whatever what we want to do, let them do, and then let them learn. But America works with Singapore. It's okay. So in this case, I think what happened was people here in the Philippines, the government couldn't get them to be in order. So the result was it was not as successful. And I think in this case too, there is definitely fear that it might cause a lot of the panic, a lot of the people um, worrying again that there will be another kind of chaos. A lot of people um, um, getting killed without documentation and things like that. But at the end, if you can get hold of the security levels of country at a much higher level, I think won't really that it won't really matter that much. Not as much as other people would think. All those people who keep on saying about the um, if you go have a stronghold of the country like a dictator, it won't work. Blah 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 blah. All these people who say a lot of those things, and usually you'll find them being at the mercy of the smuggler terrorists too. Like what I mean by that is they they get their money from them, and the smuggler terrorists, because they have so much money, then they can do whatever they want, right? Even create problems that doesn't really exist. They create more problems that is not supposed to exist, but they create it, and so it exists now. And when we have to solve it, and then we need more money. We need money to solve it. So it goes round and round and round. And at the bottom line, we find that the yuppies, particularly when I say yuppies, I mean the guys who have grown up in a family that have a lot of money, but because they've grown up in that kind of lifestyle, they don't know how to work, the value of work. They just use money, and because they don't know how to work, they use up a lot of money, and then they're now in need of money. And how do you get money quickly? You smuggle. You do all these problems, create all these problems for people, and so there will be more people in need of money, and it's not only you. And it looks like there will be so many of them that the government will be in a state that is we'll say it's they're quite preoccupied. They can't do anything else anymore. There's so many of these sick people. So and then you can go on and do more of your smuggling because people aren't looking anymore at that direction. Someone there at the one of those ports seems to be doing his job. Create problems for him, get him out, and then you can have more of the smuggling there, and you can have a lot of the luxury vehicles, the millions of pesos of agricultural products or whatever products you want, and that's how you got more money, right? Okay, so we'll stop here for now. Thanks for joining me, and we'll see each other soon.